Okay, we should be live now. So last week we talked about mostly inflation and goldbacks as a way of preparing for inflation, and a little bit about propagation of trees. So anybody have any follow-up on that they would like to discuss?
Is it too late?
No? For which one?
To
Inflation?
propagate trees? I mean, we had talked about doing some blueberries, right? But I don't know if it's like best in spring. I've got elderberries that I'm looking at, maybe propagating some off of my elderberries. But I don't know if it's like just that new wood it's best to propagate off, or is it best off old wood, or
Well, for the elderberries, you actually cut them down to the ground, which should have already done, and plant that old piece of old stalk, like a foot long. Um, I don't know whether you could plant them off of start them off of greenwood or not. I haven't done that personally, but the blueberries, it's actually a little early for them because you use this year's wood, but after it's hardened a little bit, so like late June, July timeframe is the best time to get cuttings for that and start them.
so after harvest?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good.
So it's wood that grows this spring, but it's hardened up a little bit. It's not real sappy.
Excellent. Thanks.
Anyway, so
Brother Kim, if there's any kind of plant material that you're interested in, somebody here might already have some and be able to share something with you. So speak up if you want are wanting to be shared with.
Thank you so much.
okay, so market news today. The markets were mostly down today, except for I think gold was up a couple of dollars, but all the major indices were down today. And does anybody know what happened at like 2 o'clock this afternoon? Because there was a big gyration in all the markets about that time. The Dow went up like 100 points, and then the next bar it was down 100 points. I don't think there was a Fed meeting or anything. I don't know. I just thought it was a kind of an anomaly today. Goldbacks are still the same price they were last week. They're trading at 480 today. Silver was up a few cents at 28.12 today, and the gold silver ratio is still real high at 1 to 85. The tilts and zeros were down a little bit today, and they're below support. It's looking like since everybody's decided that the Fed's not going to cut rates, that those are going to have to come down and find support at a lower level. So wheat was down a couple of pennies, I think 1 cent today at 5.30. And last week we started following DBA and DBC, which are commodity funds. The DBA is agricultural commodities, and DBC is a broad-based with gold and some agriculture and oil. And if indeed the scenario that we're going to have severe inflation, or at least moderate inflation, those, all of these things should be a good thing to have at least some of your portfolio in. One exception to things going down today was the military industrial complex. It was mostly up today except for NOC, which is Northrop Grumman. I think all the other defense stocks were up today. That's one of those things we can count on. Natural gas was up a little bit today. The futures were we're still pretty low though, compared to the price of production, which is like $2.30 a thousand. And we started following U.S. oil, and it was down a little bit today after going crazy with what happened in the Middle East a few days ago. Bitcoin was up, I think about $700 at the end of the day, so around 63,000, a little plus, and that was like 1%. And bits and BitI were not following that too well. They were less than 1% up and down. So these are the two substitutions I use if you want to go long or short on Bitcoin. But usually they move opposite each other and the same amount, but not so today. Last week we talked about Jamie Dimon warns interest rates could rise to 8%. Talked about National Guard in Texas and 5 states joining them. The war on natural gas, war on cash. I keep encouraging people to use that cash, even if it's not convenient, because that ensures that we may have it longer than before somebody decides to take it away from us or not accept it. So war on food, we got the Netherlands, Germany, France, India, Italy. Not sure who else that seems to be trying to put all the farmers out of business. And it's coming to America, in Oregon and Pennsylvania. Been some big actions there. Seem to have a war on bridges. Mike has some update on that, maybe.
I do think there was a significant amount of weather events happening up in that direction, flooding across southwestern Pennsylvania. Rivers were high, but there was 26 barges that came loose, and ended up against some bridges and dams. But oddly, they were all from one country or company. But that's all I know.
Okay. We still don't have a real confirmation whether this is accidental or planned, but
yeah, the dock that they're in, I don't know how many companies there are. Maybe they're the only company there, and so I don't know.
Anyway, we may or may not have sabotage going on. I'm thinking the one in Baltimore was, but and the one that almost happened in New York. But anyway, and of course we got the Middle East, and if the Middle East had or may yet blow up more, if Iran or if Israel retaliates, were you prepared for that? I just thought it was real interesting that the people in Israel weren't, because at the height of it, they were going out and buying gasoline and bottled water and toilet paper and all the things that people do here before a snowstorm. I think they would be more prepared than any country on earth. So it looks like that's not the case. And we talked about the 12 volt, well, not necessarily 12 volt, could be 20 volt. The lithium ion batteries being a fire hazard in your home, because they'll only take about 50 watts of charge. And if you had an EMP or a CME or a lightning strike on your home, it could produce 50,000 watts. All those tool batteries would go up in flame. Something to be aware of. That keep in mind as a fire hazard that we probably don't think about. So seasonal information. Still got a little time to plant some trees and And maybe I've still got some things that need to be pruned. Prime gardening time right now. Still can plant some seeds indoors or sweet potato slips, get those going. Check bees or put out swarm traps to try to catch you some bees.
Hey, Winston, could we just touch a little bit more on the sweet potato slips? And the ones I've got are sprouting up quite nicely. I'm not sure what the next step is, though.
Okay. Like how tall are they?
Probably one pot's probably 5, almost 6 inches.
Okay. Between 6 inches and a foot tall, I would start breaking them off, like take a flathead screwdriver or something like that and reach down and kind of pry it off the
Okay.
mother potato.
Yep.
And you'll have some roots there. And anyway, just put that in a vase or a glass of water and let it root more, before you put it out in the garden, because we're probably still a week away from when you should put them out in the garden.
Okay. And so for each one that I break off, they need to go in their own little cup of water.
You can put 5 or 6 in a glass of water,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
as long as they don't grow together so much that you can't separate them when the time
Right.
comes. But we're getting there.
Got it.
So, trees, and hopefully everybody's got their potassium iodine. Really think the Israelites should. Good. And so now is where we talk about any progress that people have made that they would like to share. Anybody done anything in the last week or so that we should know about?
I was watering the carrots and the beets and the arugula. Our arugula came up probably about 60% of the seeds that I planted, and beets are showing their tops, but the carrots just seem to be lagging. Even though I've been out there and watering, I'm just seeing very few popping through. They really do take a long time to germinate and are a little bit fussy.
The other one I've had a lot of trouble with through the years is spinach.
So Liz, are you seed saving from the previous year, or are you buying new seeds every year?
We're not seed saving on the carrots because it takes 2 years to make a carrot seed, but they're not necessarily bought this year either, so that could be a problem.
We also use pelletized seeds. Johnny's has a pelletized carrot seed that are covered in a clay and nice little pellets, and you can see them when you put them in the soil because they're so fine. They're just obnoxious if you're going with the unpelletized seeds. But we've found that those are really simple, and for me, the cost of the investment of ordering those seeds is worth it because the seed is just so tiny to work with.
Yeah. Thanks.
And here's the house garden. It's a jungle out there. Flat of tomatoes in the background, which are about ready to go out in the garden also. I think it's time. Today is our average last frost date. I have to look at the weather, see what the next 10 days looks like. But part of the problem, though, is I've been wanting to get these out and harden off a little bit, outside, but it's been so windy, I don't dare take them out. They get totally beaten up, so they haven't been hardened off yet. And here's what my sweet potatoes look like, the slips. And they were getting so tall and long, some of them 3 foot, that I broke off the ends of them and made some for Tammy if she wants them.
Excellent.
Starting to root. Some of them were so tender they kind of wilted down, but most of them, I think, I'm not sure how many's in there, eight or 10 maybe, and I think most of them are going to make it, except for one maybe. So, got a video that to share, and then we'll talk about that a little bit.
Toshi, is just like buying into New York City 250 years ago.
There's only one thing as an average American, there's only one thing, only one hang up I have. It's that I feel like I'm a little late to the party. There's no way I can accumulate one whole Bitcoin. I mean, at this point, I'm shooting for 0.1 Bitcoin. So, I mean, I guess my question is 0.1 Bitcoin of any significance?
You know, New York was the greatest city in North America by about 1776. And you would have been late to the party. But the question is, would you buy a city block in New York in 1776? Or if you waited till 1876 and you were really late to the party and New York was the greatest city in North America, was it too late to buy a city block in New York City in 1876? Or how about 1976? If you were 200 years late to New York City, if you look at the property values of New York in 1976, what you'll find is you would be rich if you had actually bought real estate in New York in 1976. So the answer to the issue is in every economic system, every economic empire, there's always one city, one place that one network where people gravitate to. In ancient, in the ancient Med, it was Carthage for a while, and then it was Rome, and then it was Venice, and eventually the French Empire terminated in Paris, and the British Empire terminated in London, and then eventually the American economic empire terminated in New York. And there are reasons why. It's just everybody comes together in that place. Even today, New York is still the economic epicenter of the United States. And so Bitcoin represents the economic epicenter of cyberspace. It is the one place where if I want to create a digital application, if I want to move money at the speed of light, and I live in Singapore, I'm using Bitcoin. If I live in Paris, I'm using Bitcoin. If I live in Moscow, I'm using Bitcoin. If I live in China, I'm using Bitcoin. So you see, everybody in the world that actually believes in the idea of a digital asset that wants to build this as a treasury reserve asset, they're going to gravitate toward the most powerful network. Why? Because everybody else is gravitating there. Why do people go to New York? Because the smart money is in New York. I could go to New York 20 years ago. I could take 10 meetings. I could raise $1 billion in 2 days. So why would you be so stupid as to go to New York? Well, because that's where the money is. The money is in New York. So I went. And what did I bring with me? I brought my brain power and I built my business there. And so I then reinforced that network effect. Today, the smart money is in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's about a $500 billion network. How big can it get? Well, 500 trillion, 1,000x bigger in today's dollars. there's about $950 trillion worth of wealth out there. 350 trillion worth of real estate. Half of it is just capital or monetary premium. $300 trillion worth of bonds. Half of it is just a monetary premium. 100 trillion worth of equity. Half of it is a monetary premium. 12 trillion worth of gold. 80% of it is a monetary premium. So as the world gets smarter, people are going to sell those things because they don't make good money. Gold is awful money, right? It's just awful money. If you store your money in gold, you're losing half of your wealth every 35 years. So why would you do that, right? It's not working. In the last 2.5 years, gold is down 5%. Bitcoin is up 150%. The only people that are buying or holding gold are people that aren't paying attention, right? The smart money is clearly running away from it. And in time, people will dump their gold. And when they dump their gold, Bitcoin will jump by a factor of 10. So the answer to the question of why you should buy a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin represents one block in cyber New York, which has got 21 million blocks for all of eternity. And in the year 2500, people are going to be moving to cyber New York, right? I mean, New York was founded a long time ago, right? The only thing that keeps people from continuing to come into the great city, whether it's the New York or the London or the Paris, is when the economic flows move from the physical domain to the digital domain. As long as you did business in an analog world where you had to like put on a suit and walk into a building and meet with people, then you're going to see London and Paris and Tokyo and Hong Kong be great cities. When the economy moves to the digital realm and you don't have to put on a suit and walk into a building and you can have a Zoom meeting of 20 people in 20 places and raise $1 billion in a day, right? Then some of the economic energy drains out of the city networks and it drains into the crypto network. And so buying a Bitcoin, whether it's one Bitcoin or a million Satoshis or 100,000 Satoshis or one Satoshi, is just like buying into New York City 250 years ago. Yeah, sure, you're late. People got there 100 years before you. Okay. Well, in this case, someone got there 14 years before you. I once tweeted, very famously, I said, I think Bitcoin is, going the way of online gambling. And I think Bitcoin is like $100 a coin then. Okay. And I was wrong, but I didn't need it. I was wrong. When I needed Bitcoin was $9,500, $10,000 a coin. And so I bought it at $10,000 instead of $100. People will buy it at 100,000. They will buy it at 1 million. They will probably buy it at 10 million, right? Because, how much does it cost for an apartment in Manhattan? People pay $10 million for 4,000 square feet. $10 million, right? All of Manhattan was purchased for like $29 in beads or something. If you roll the clock back, some nothing. And so you can't really get caught up in what the unit price is. You have to ask the question, what is the dominant network in cyberspace? And Bitcoin is the dominant network. And the reason it's the dominant network is a bunch of things. One, all the smart money arrived there, right? If all the smart people that wanted a decentralized, non-sovereign store of value crypto network, if they all showed up, looked at 10,000 choices and picked this one and put all their money on it, right? That's like all the smart people, they showed up in America and they picked New York. You know why they picked New York? New York is sitting on 200 million year old granite schist, right? It's indestructible as an island, Manhattan. It's sitting between a bunch of rivers. It's sitting in front of one of the world's great harbors. And it's sitting at the mouth of the Hudson River, which is 1 mile wide, deep, and it goes straight right into the heart of the country. So if you were picking a port city, it was the most rock solid, geographically sound, logistically sound, well engineered port you could possibly imagine, and so it matters, and Bitcoin represents the same thing. Bitcoin is backed by 400 exahash of digital energy, and 400 exahash of digital energy makes it the most powerful computer network in the world. And so if I'm going to put $1 billion on it, I would want the indestructible, nation state resistant, fault tolerant, most powerful computer network in the world. I wouldn't want the second most powerful network. And I wouldn't want a network 100 times less powerful. I want a network where you would need every computer in the world to slow it down 10%, and you would need all the electricity in the world to slow it down 10%. And that's what Bitcoin represents because of the way it's engineered. It represents an indestructible, unstoppable, most powerful computer network. And so anybody is looking to, if you're looking right now, you shouldn't look at it as, well, I wanted to buy something cheap and wait for it to go up 100x, so I better buy something that's a penny stock. Like, there is a meme, we call it penny stocks, right? The whole joke of a penny stock is, if you really wanted a penny stock, we can manufacture thousands of them. That's the theme of the movie Boiler Room. The Wolf of Wall Street did that. It's been going on for hundreds of years. People manufacture a penny stock and they tell you buy it for a penny. It's going to go up to $5. You're going to make 500x your money. That's not what you want. You want a cheap apartment? I'll sell you a $4 million apartment in New York, which looks expensive, or I'll sell you a $42,000 apartment, in some random suburb, in a third world country. But the point really is, which is the better real estate investment? It's not a matter of the cost to buy the thing. It's a question of how secure is the network you're buying into. And everybody will tell you, you buy the beachfront property in Palm Beach or Miami Beach, you're better off to buy a house on land than to buy the apartment. You're better off to buy the apartment in the good building than the bad building, and you're better off to buy the apartment in the good neighborhood than the bad neighborhood. And you're better off to buy the real estate in the capital city of Rome or London or Paris or New York than to buy the real estate in the 13th biggest city in the country when the inflation comes. So that would be my answer to that question.
Be sure to click subscribe. We drop a video every single day, keeping you informed about.
Okay. Let's new share. Okay, so one thing that Michael Saylor there didn't talk about was the halving. And before we continue our discussion on that, Bill, could you give us a brief synopsis on the halving and what it's done for Bitcoin in the last halvings historically?
So just generally, it's exactly what the term means. It halves the amount of coins that are produced and the money that the miners receive when they finish the work of solving the algorithms that they do. So I don't know if this group, I know a few of you know, but in the end with Bitcoin, the concept of mining is just computers running algorithms that come up with solutions to problems, and as a reward they receive Bitcoin. They get a certain amount every coin that they receive or every problem they solved, and then that reward is Bitcoin. And that number that they receive roughly every 4 years halves. And so that's what's coming up. That's it's imminent. I think Mike was saying that we had 3,000 or 8,000 left. There's trackers online if you want to see where we're at in the blockchain and see when it's actually going to happen. But it happens roughly every 4 years. And traditionally, what happens is there's these 4-year cycles that may not hold true anymore, but we'll see. But it's bad for the miners right off, because they get half the income for the same amount of work. But it proves to be good for those who hold Bitcoin, because it goes up in the 12 to 18 months after dramatically. And so that's what everyone is anticipating. Now it's a little bit weird because this one, I think it's because the EFT, but we reached all-time high in Bitcoin. I don't know if a couple weeks ago or whenever that was, where it's in the 70,000 range, and it's come down since then. So that's a little bit of an anomaly, and we'll see what that does, because it could be significant, or because for me, what that says is a lot more people have access to Bitcoin. And so there's potentially more demand for it, which means there could be an increase in the value of Bitcoin. So supply isn't gone down; it continues to go up. It just goes up by less, because the halving is just the amount of rewards that are provided to the miners as they do these calculations. I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
That pretty much sums it up. And I just made the comment earlier that I thought it was kind of weird that somebody told me last week that it was going to be on Tuesday, which is why I chose this topic today. But lo and behold, now it's Friday. But anyway,
Yeah.
that kind of surprised me.
I think Mike was right. It depends on the number of miners. It depends on the number of blocks.
But
Yeah.
I thought the timing of the blocks was every 10 minutes regardless. But
Is that cutting out for everyone else?
yes.
That type of thing. So it's not an no, it hasn't been the same date. It hasn't been the same date. So the interesting, I was looking a little bit at what the halving means, and this cycle is different because now Bitcoin is being acquired or created at a slower rate than gold, which wasn't the case before. And that may be significant or may not be significant, but it's because it's going down gradually. I mean, I think we all know there'll be 21 million Bitcoin in existence once they're all done. That there's no more after that, and so it's becoming more less of a flow, I guess. The volume of flow into the money supply, the collection of Bitcoin is slowing, and it's by program. That's how it was created. But it implies that there will be more potential increase in value. Now it could go up dramatically, which has happened, but it could also go down some, and we've seen that happen too.
Yep.
I just shared a link in chat. There's we're roughly around 93% of all Bitcoin have been mined. But to get to 99.9 to 5 places, it'll take until past 2100 at today's rates. And it's estimated that the last Bitcoin to be mined will take an additional 4 years. So.
And also, as I understand, we've lost between 1 and 2 million Bitcoin.
I don't know how many, but yeah, once the private key is lost, they are likely lost forever.
So anyway, so we may never get to 21, actually having 21 million, but may only be 19 or 20. But anyway.
Well, there will be 21 million, but it's whether people have access to them or not. That's the key.
Yeah.
I mean, they were created, right? Or they will be created.
Yeah. They just may be like gold or silver that gets used up, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's not in the pool to fight over.
Yeah, and there's no concept of burning tokens or they reducing the supply, as a lot of other cryptocurrencies have that, where they burn the tokens to do transactions or for whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons they do it, but Bitcoin doesn't do that.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about, which I couldn't spell, was rehypothecation. can't say it much either. But my conjecture is that's part of the thing as to why things may be different this time. Because the Wall Street big boys, now with these 11 Bitcoin ETFs or more, if you take the ones that aren't pure plays, there's ways to flood the market with Bitcoin by rehypothecating it. And does anybody know, is that a foreign term to everybody, or?
It is to me.
Okay. Well, basically, it's the way people make short, make markets go down so they can make money. And so, like, we still have what, 19 million Bitcoin or something out there right now, but and that can't grow except through these miners. But now that ETFs are holding these just like a gold ETF, they can take my holdings. If I'm hodler number one, and I have one whole Bitcoin, and I have it locked in cold storage, nobody can do anything about it. But I have one Bitcoin in an ETF. Now the brokerage outfits can take my one Bitcoin and loan it to somebody else who wants to sell it. So that's how short selling is done with all other stocks, like gold ETFs and IBM or whatever stock it is. So the effect of it is you flood the market. If let's say in these 11 ETFs, there's the equivalent of 10 million Bitcoins get in there, and all of them are borrowed and sold into the market. So now we got 20 million Bitcoins out there effectively. And so that could make this having different than I'm not saying they've done that, but they've done that to BlackRock, and people like that have done that to every other market that they've ever taken over. So I would expect to look out for it. And that doesn't mean that long term Bitcoin's not still going to be $1 million. It just means that somebody's gonna get a deal out of it, or make money out of the the ups and downs of transitions, just like they do all the other markets. So that's something that I think Bitcoin has not really been exposed to before these ETFs were approved.
The other thing that beyond the kind of multiplication of the coins is that it's just the amount of adoption. People are aware of it, right? People are either buying ETFs or buying Bitcoin on their own, and it's been weird. I mean, most of you have seen this over the last few years, where no one looks at crypto and Bitcoin really. It's the internet's magic money, and it just doesn't make any sense. And why would you ever do that? And now it's mainstream. It just is. And with that adoption, there's more potential for even though it's a different space in the ETFs. There's the marketing of it and the knowledge. People are aware of it, and people are interested in it. That could change the way this works altogether too, because previous halvings didn't have this.
Yeah. And you really brought up a good point there, the knowledge. I mean, a year ago, in my opinion, you had to know quite a bit to buy Bitcoin,
Yeah.
You couldn't just buy it through your brokerage account, but now with all these ETFs out there, anybody that's got a brokerage account can own Bitcoin, just with a click of a button, and you don't have to know anything about it. I don't know whether that's good or bad for the market, but I would think long term it should certainly make it go up, but it becomes available to anyone with a dollar. They can buy a little bit of Bitcoin. But if you were going to buy Bitcoin, how should you hold it? How should you hold that Bitcoin now with all the options that we've got? Like I said, it used to be kind of complicated, but you can now, well, even a year and a half ago, I was able to buy Bitcoin in my PayPal account. But now it's a lot better than it was then. But you can actually transfer Bitcoin in PayPal now if you have some. The other options, 2 years ago, you had to have a special IRA account or Roth IRA account to be able to put it in. And now any brokerage account will take it, and you can trade it in there. So in my opinion, being able to put it in a tax deferred account, if you're not buying more than the limits of that, is probably a no-brainer. That's the first place probably you should put it. Well, maybe not the first place, the second place probably. I have just a little bit of aversion to allowing my Bitcoin to be rehypothecated by the powers that be, where I think if you had it in a cold storage wallet, they wouldn't have access to it. But something to think about. But from a tax point of view, being able to have an appreciating asset in tax deferred account, tax exempt account has a lot of advantages. So, and then the other thing would be how and when should you spend your Bitcoin? Michael Saylor says never. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, in my opinion, if I need to spend it, I'll spend it. That's the deal. Right? I look at it right now as a store, and so it's like a bank, and I'm not planning on spending. I'm modeling it, but in the end, my goal isn't to have money that I never use, but I have it, and I can just know I have it. It's to buy whatever I want, and so I think you spend it when you need to or when you want to.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the next line.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. So I think Winston, but I'll say I had put money in. I'm looking at my wife because she knows that this was a loss. But we a few years ago we put money into Celsius and BlockFi, crypto in there, and both those went bankrupt. And what they were doing for us, they were earning interest, and so it's like staking, but it was just pure interest. They were using that whatever cryptocurrency to do loans and to do whatever, and that came crashing down on us. And so it's the old rule: not your keys, not your crypto. And I'm a huge fan right now of I hold the keys. It's in my hardware wallet, and it's it's obvious on the blockchain, but it's mine. And then there are many ways with different currencies to be able to stake it, or you can earn additional crypto and it can grow. But I'm more in the mode of hodling and just keeping it there.
Yeah. Well, I think those kind of programs will obviously be taken over by Fidelity and Charles Schwab and Vanguard and those people, where you'll be able to borrow against it just like you can borrow against your stock portfolio. And so hopefully it'll be won't be such a shady outfit. I too lost a little Bitcoin in BlockFi, but fortunately it was Bitcoin that I earned there. So anyway, it'd be nice to have it now.
Yeah, it would, but you know, it's a part of the learning curve for me, part of the learning curve for the whole industry and market, right?
Yeah.
And you know, had Bitcoin stayed rolling like it was, we went through that, you know, real down time. I don't think they would have gone bankrupt. And I understand that there were some shady deals going on there, so maybe it would have eventually, but and I don't know. I think it had more to do with the price, but I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and there were all sorts of others, you know, FTX, and when all that was going on, it was just chaos, right?
Yeah.
But
And I also know that that some of y'all own some real estate, and traditionally the wealthy people in this country, when they, and this has to do with how you hold your Bitcoin, but the wealthy people of this country who are into real estate, you know, they don't sell those properties in retirement when they need the money. They just refinance them and pull out the cash, and then that real,
right, and the beauty of that is it's tax free.
yeah, right. Which, so if you're not in a tax advantaged account with it, then I think that would be the way to go, because you can borrow that money and not have to necessarily ever pay it back. You can do like our government does, just keep borrowing more money to pay the interest. And as long as your asset, your Bitcoin, keeps appreciating, you know, the average, 50% a year or more, then
Well, I saw a stat just today that since the beginning of the year, it's gone up 45%.
yeah. And I don't know what time period. I was trying to see what Michael Saylor had done, because he said gold was down 5% in the last year. That's not true. Maybe it was a couple of years ago or whatever. But anyway, gold is for gold. It's performed real well this last year too. But
I got the impression he was referring to versus the dollar, you know, the perceived value of the dollar. I don't know.
well, in dollars, it's been real well. I mean, if you compared it to Bitcoin, maybe he was comparing it to Bitcoin. But anyway, I didn't think he was totally factual there. But we know he is very biased, but that's okay. We can still listen to him sometimes. So anyway, I just wanted to bring those things up, that you know, it can be handled just like traditional American money, and you can borrow it to live off of it at the end of your life. And I think that will be well, I know the big brokerage houses are already talking about offering that. Well, it won't have to be a new offering now with the ETFs. I mean, you just borrow against your brokerage portfolio, regardless of what's in it. And currently, they let you borrow pretty cheaply off of that. So, I mean, it's all set up and ready to go. Nothing has to happen. So, other than you have to have some Bitcoin in there. Any other thoughts about Bitcoin? I've got another short video if y'all are game to go in another 30 minutes for survival crops for small farms and homesteads. This guy picks his top 6. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to the channel, friends, and welcome to our garden. In today's uncertain times, especially at the grocery store, knowing what to grow in your garden is really important. Today, we're going to talk about our top 6 survival crops that you must grow. Let's talk about those. So in very difficult times, when you are trying to grow food for your family, you want to grow two types of food. Foods that are really nutritionally dense and foods that are calorically dense. So the best vegetables and fruits that you can find that have the most vitamins and minerals and have the most calories, because you're going to need that for energy, especially working on growing the food. Now today I'm going to talk about what grows best in our area, Zone 8B in Texas, but most of the things that I'm going to talk about will grow in any climate. But if you need to, go ahead and modify this list to best fit your needs. Now the very first thing you need to be growing in your garden are beans or legumes. And I want to lump those two together because in some instances beans grow better for people, in some instances lentils grow better for people, and peas grow better for people. Some of those grow at different times of years. So you can always be planting some sort of legume, and for us, we've got an issue with leafhoppers, which really attack our beans. We do well, we plant a decent amount of beans and we harvest as much as we can, but we also do plant peas. So you always do want to modify what you're planting per what your conditions are. So you can't just plant the same bean every year and have success with it. Sometimes the insect pressure on that specific variety is higher, or that specific type of legume is higher in one year than it is in another. So for as much space as you have, give a little bit of variety, not too much, but give some variety. Now the nice thing about beans is you have different types of beans. So if you're limited on space, you can grow something like a pole bean on a trellis like this. These are Chinese asparagus beans, long beans, string beans, whatever you want to call them. They're easy to grow. They still do attract the same pests, however, as our bush beans, which are the leaf hoppers. And right now, we've got some aphids on them, so we need to treat that. Here we have some spring English peas. These will give us a lot this year. I have to work on the trellises a little bit, but they are similar in their nutritional value as any other legume, and they grow really easily, although they are susceptible to aphids. Now remember, anything you grow needs to be either calorie dense or nutritionally dense, but getting a good balance between the two is really important. Beans and legumes are super high in protein, and you need that in your diet. But they also have a ton of vitamins in them, and vitamins and minerals and all that nutrition that you need. And here's the other great thing about them is they store really well when dried or frozen or anything like that. So we grow a lot of pinto beans, and those beans you want to let dry on the vine. Those are great for storage, and they are really easy to do so. If you want to learn how to do that, we did a video about it. Check at the top of the screen. The next important crop to grow is corn. And corn, because it is very calorie dense. It has a lot of good fats in it, and it's fairly easy to grow. And certain varieties you can dry really easily for long-term storage. And once you dry it, you can grind it and make cornmeal, so it can be very versatile in your diet. As you can see behind us, our corn is just starting to come up for the spring. So when you're planting corn, remember you're going to need a decent amount of space because you need to have enough corn for it to pollinate one another. If you don't have enough, or you just have one row of corn, it's not going to work. Now the next thing I recommend growing highly is squash, in particular hard winter squashes. And that is because they store very well, and they're incredibly nutritionally dense. So if you don't have any special type of storage, your winter squashes, your pumpkins, your butternuts especially, and my wife's favorite, the honeyboat delicatas, they will store in the house in a decent temperature, a cool temperature, for months. Now once I said beans and corn, you knew I was probably going to say squash, because that is a very traditional Native American planting pairing which incorporates all three, and they're called the Three Sisters. That's because Native Americans understood how well they grew together, but they also understood the nutritional value of all three of those. So right behind me we have potatoes, but that is not the next thing on the list. And I'm going to save that for the end of the video where I compare it to another crop and tell you why you may not want to plant potatoes in your survival garden if you don't have the space. Now this one might throw a lot of people off, but having greens in your diet is really important, and this one is one of the best. And that is the humble collard green. Why is it so important? It's because they are both incredibly heat tolerant and cold tolerant. And there's another one I'm going to show you in a second that's in the same family. But it's important to have greens in your diet because it helps to build good blood. Blood is your life. You can see I've got some collards growing over here, and these are actually volunteers from the other ones that were here in this bed. But our whole bed here is dedicated to cruciferous vegetables. We've got some kale growing over here in the center. You'll have to excuse the random raspberry that decided to root itself in here. I'll have to transplant that and get it out of here. So in our greenhouse here, we do have collards, and these are infested by aphids right now, but I'm in the process of taking care of them. Unfortunately, we were gone for a little while, and the aphids did get to all of these. But we've got a couple of this special plant right here still looking really good, and this is Nero di Toscana. Now it's classified as a cruciferous vegetable. Some people call it a kale, some people call it a cabbage. It is delicious, whatever it is. So these plants will get very, very tall, and they produce a lot. And they're really easy to dry out the leaves and make little chips out of them. You can see how dark green these leaves are, and they provide more nutrition than your collard greens. And they are almost as heat and cold tolerant as the collard green. So I recommend putting both of these in the garden at the same time. Now the next thing I'm going to mention is not usually mentioned in videos about survival gardening, and I don't know why. It's because it's very important, and that is the tomato. So why am I mentioning tomatoes? Well, 3 reasons really, and the first one is that they are easy to grow. When gardeners are first starting, the number one fruit that they actually start with is tomatoes, because they grow in a lot of different climates and they are super easy. The second reason is they are very nutritionally dense, and they are offering vitamins and minerals that are in a higher content than any of the other things that I mentioned, especially vitamin C and lycopene. We all know in survival situations that vitamin C is very important to help ward off sickness. But the lycopene itself is also a powerful antioxidant. So eating a lot of tomatoes, having a lot of tomatoes in your diet is really important. And the third reason is if you are a beginner with food preservation, tomatoes are extremely easy to learn how to preserve in canning. And they just use a water bath canning method. And a lot of people who start food preservation start with tomatoes. We did a video recently on how to save your tomatoes for future canning and preservation. Go check that out at the top of the screen. So I've stepped away from the garden to talk about our very last crop. And I think this is the most important crop that you could grow. And that is a sweet potato. And I'm going to recommend, if you don't have a lot of space, that you grow sweet potatoes instead of your regular Irish style potatoes, and here's why. And that's because sweet potatoes have several advantages over regular Irish potatoes. One being is that they store much better than regular potatoes. Not only do they store better, which means that they don't have to have the same special environment in humidity and temperature as regular potatoes, but they store for a longer period of time. I just leave mine here in these buckets in my house, and I keep my house at 76 degrees, give or take. And they last until the next season. For the Irish potatoes, it's a little bit more work to get them to last until the next season. And usually the ones we get to last are the seed potatoes, and they are not edible anymore, unlike the sweet potato. So let's talk about some more things very important about the sweet potato. It is higher in calories, it's higher in fat, and it has a greater overall nutritional value than the regular Irish potato. Now, regular Irish potatoes have a little bit more protein, but this tops the regular potatoes in every other category. And something else you can do with this plant that's very important is eat the leaves from it. So not only can you eat these roots, but you can eat the leaves. And the leaves are incredibly high in vitamin C. A lot of Asian cultures eat sweet potato leaves as a regular green. And then they also have the advantage of having the roots. So overall, this plant is a superfood. I've done a whole video on why this plant's a superfood, and you should have it in your garden. Check that out at the top of the screen. Now, both of these veggies are very easy to grow. Sweet potatoes do very well here in the South. It's obviously known as growing in the South, but you can also grow them in northern climates. So if there was only one thing that you could grow this. The cool thing about the 6 fruits and veggies that I mentioned today is that the majority of them are very easy to grow for any gardener. So get started with those 6 today in your survival garden and you will be way ahead of the curve. Have a beautiful, blessed day, and we will see you on the next video. Bye.
Okay. Okay, Brother Kim, you got your marching orders now. You know exactly what to grow.
I was just discussing with my wife what exactly we're about to grow.
You know, normally I would, we've done these before from other people with their recommendations, and normally I say corn is a no-no unless you've got, you know, quite a bit of ground. But if you combine it with the other 2 sisters, beans and squash, growing in the same bed, then you do make pretty good use of that square footage of your garden bed. So something to consider if you do it that way. You know, you run pole beans up your corn plants. Just be aware that when you do that, your corn needs to get a head start. It needs to be up at least a foot tall before you plant the beans, and just plant the squash about that time also, so they don't totally overrun your corn before it gets a chance to get above them. So other than that, the collards and kale, yeah, I agree with that. The tomatoes, sweet potatoes, you know, you talked about how nutritious it was, and if you grow the purple ones like I do, it's even more nutritious. So full of the anthocyanins, whatever. So, anyway, that's about all I got tonight. Anybody else got anything they want to comment on the gardening or the Bitcoin? Or
Do you know what? I just want to put a plug in for the produce auction over the hill in Harrisonburg. I cannot grow my tomatoes cheap enough when I can go over there and so and more cake.
You break it on me, Tom.
A bargain deal, and that gives me enough quantity to truly can some spaghetti sauce or I plant in my yard. Is it breaking up?
It's better
now. Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't plant enough in my yard to do a good canning session, but by going over to the auction with your wife, we can bring home cases of stuff, and I can be canning all week long for, I mean, amazing prices. So if you're looking for things in quantity, I would definitely check out the produce auction.
Yeah.
Well, and we've also gotten incredible prices on peppers, and we keep Diane supplied in peppers because they use them every day of the winter, right, Tammy?
Oh yeah, yeah, they are big pepper users.
But the prices we can get are phenomenal.
Yeah, we didn't even mention peppers, and you know, if you're talking about hot peppers, you know, you don't have to grow a whole lot of them. They go a long ways. So that might be something.
I've been able to get bags of hot habaneros where we probably have 100 habaneros in there, and I've gotten those bags for $1 a bag. And to say the least, it really overwhelmed the recipient.
Yeah. So I guess we better let everybody get their night back, and thank everybody for coming out and having the discussions that we had.
Thank you as usual. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thanks, Winston.
Bye.